This is where the fun begins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Literature Review. I almost said coffee chat because we were just discussing that just a few minutes ago. But good morning, everybody, and welcome to Literature Review. And, Stig was complaining. He was like, I have a complaint. So he's being a Karen, right?
No, I wasn't. I was concerned about your channel's image.
And he goes, since I'm your co-pilot, he goes, shouldn't I be next to you? I'm like, this is not coffee chat.
He was actually being a prima donna.
Ooh.
No, I wasn't. I was looking for consistency.
All about branding. It's about
Yeah.
consistent branding, right?
Well, if you're going to move, Stig, I mean, do it now. Yeah, good, because I want to know where I'm going to be firing my arrows.
Okay, there you go. And see, I have to put this up here. So, okay. So today we are discussing Truce at Bakura. So all of us either, maybe just read it or revisited it, whatever, on the panel. And this is a sequel to Return of the Jedi. So I've been very excited about reviewing this book. We do have kind of a mixed panel on this, I guess you can say, on what they think about the book. I think it's a fun edition to read after, to conclude Return of the Jedi. But the author is Kathy Tyers. The cover artist is Drew Struzan, and it's from the Bantam era, and it was published in 1993. I do have the hardcover here. So isn't that gorgeous? Look at that.
That's the one I read.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Got it for $4 on eBay. Looks brand new.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, the one that I got is actually, because when they first came out, what a lot of people might not remember is when they came out with a lot of these books, they were all hardcover at first.
Mm-hmm.
And usually the paperback, or trade paperbacks as they would call them back then, they would come out much later. The trade paperback I have wasn't. It was part of the reissue for the hardcover. Didn't happen until '97. So
yeah, right. And so the timeline is for ABY, and of course the worlds visited. There's only two. There's Bakura and Endor, because this is just what, a day, like hours into a day right after Endor. So that's what makes it really exciting, because we get to see the conclusion and how everybody's adapting and feeling after that big battle, especially after what Luke Skywalker went through. And of course, the main characters are Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, Han Solo, Dev Sabora, and then Willick Nerus. And some of these I might butcher. Gariel, which we do see her in novels after this. Gariel Captason, and Ferrer Rung, that's the CC Rook, or the CC Rook that runs in Techmints, and Patur Thanos, and Orn Beldon, and then Epi Beldon. So those are the main characters that they initially focus on there. So, and let's see who's in the chat before we get started. We have Orange Chat Review. The Rebels don't have it.
Open airlock. That's not open.
Yeah, open airlock. Sorry. The Rebels don't have a lot of luck after Endor. No, they don't. Don't. Yeah. And then we have Amen Fate in here. Hello there. And then we have the Blue Pig Gaming. Hello, how are you doing? And then Orange Hat Review. Can't stay. Got my own stream I got to do tonight, but I will stop by before going live to wish my friends and OG stream a wonderful time and to leave a like. I will share the stream out too. Thank you so much for your support. And then for those channel members that came in from August to October on live streams, we did the drawing for it. And Miss Martin Muse, Truce, is the one that won a copy of the painting of Mistress of Rattatak.
I'm very, very excited.
She won the painting. What a stroke of good luck.
So membership is still open, you guys, and I am offering incentives still, and I'm going to still offer copies of my paintings as incentives. And this is one right here that it's not finished yet. It's near finished. It's near completion here. So it's Quinlan Voss.
Oh yeah.
Look at that face. Look at that.
Mm.
Well, see, that's the beauty of it, Alora. Your incentives don't have any side effects.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, look at that. I'm so sorry, Tim.
and you don't need penicillin for them either.
I'm so sorry, Tim. I got myself in trouble right there. My mind, I am okay, you guys. I am gonna be going to a family's funeral, leaving tomorrow or Friday morning. And so I'm just a little bit scatterbrained, a little bit, but I am here. I am excited to discuss this book. So, and then Annihilus, 1, 2, 1, 2. The Siruk are coming for you. 3, 4. They're at your door. Oh my God! So, do you guys know what they look like? Do you guys have an idea?
They're like a cross between lizards and birds from the descriptions that they give in the books.
Yes, and they call them fluties. So if you listen to the Audible book, or any of the Audible that that's on Audible, when they have them talk, they sound like they're fluting, they're birds or whatever, like they're a group of birds. So
yeah.
So there you go. And then I still have not read the OG Thrawn Trilogy. Really?
I'm jealous because reading that for the first time was
Need to get on that.
Yeah. You're gonna have so much fun with that.
And he's like, yeah, I had my moment there. I'm sorry. And then shave the beard, Quinlan. He looks good. No, he looks good the way he is. I think Teresa would agree with me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so let's see here. All right, so let's get this started here. And so this book, like I said, is just hours, like a day right after the Battle of Endor. And so I'm going to go around the circle here. I have 5 people here, so it's still a good enough circle to go around and ask what you guys thought about the beginning. So the beginning, we have, Luke Skywalker, and we find out how he's feeling after his fight and him redeeming his father and confronting Sidious or the Emperor and stuff like that. So what do you guys think about that? And since, me and Teresa are in the minority here, I'll go with her first. So I'm going to go ahead and move people around here. Sorry, Steve.
Oh, demoted.
Flowers
before Vikings.
There we go. So what do you think about that? Learning about how Luke Skywalker is feeling, and how did it impact you, or do you oh shit? Oh, sorry, but yeah, about the situation and how he's feeling and stuff.
Well, I liked the way it showed the after effects, the physical. I think we forget because he seemed to be so skippity skip at the end of Return of the Jedi. We forgot the dude got electrocuted.
Right.
And also had some serious trauma happen to him psychologically as well. So I like that they took the time, that the writer took the time to let us see that and to feel it. It was well done. Good idea.
Yeah. And Stig, do you have anything to add to that?
I thought Leia was struggling more with the psychological stuff than Luke, actually. She was pretty angry through this book. She was dealing with stuff.
We'll get to her psychological state too. I'm just talking about how Luke felt in the beginning, right after confronting Palpatine, because he literally threw the lightsaber and he's like, I'm a Jedi like my father before me, and really stood his ground that way. He chose not to fight because he knew if he continued to use a saber and fight, that he probably would succumb to the dark side, right? That's my impression from that.
Would you agree if I said he was recovering from the shock?
The shock of it all.
Yeah.
And then so Revkev, what do you think about that? I mean, what was your impression about learning, because I don't think anybody would really think that a author would really get into depth of the situation that someone, the health condition someone faced when in such a situation as because we never got it afterwards, really. Like whenever we hear someone get electrocuted, we don't get into like the dynamics of like recovery or how it makes them feel.
Right. Well, and I think that was an important part to add right at the beginning of the book, because it did play out for the rest of it, that Luke wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, when he faced off, against Palpatine, he was like this Jedi Knight and was, all good to go. And so introducing a villain that's not as crazy powerful as the Emperor, well, then it created more tension in the story, because Luke he's not 100% because he's still recovering from the last fight. So, so I thought it was cool how it just literally picked up the day after.
Yes, so, exactly.
Yeah, it brought back memories of the old Marvel comics when there was one of the ones that took place the day after, and it had I remember one art picture, and it had Chewbacca snuggling up with a couple of Ewoks, underneath a tree after they've all partied and celebrated. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, and before I get to Tommy, there is a Weston Games Truce at Bakura source book that was made in 1996. So there is a source book for this. So if you guys didn't know. And so the more you know, right? The more you know. And in fact, I really didn't think about even getting it, but now that I am talking about it right now, I think I want to try to find it and add it to my collection, because the source books, are amazing. They have some amazing stuff in there. Yeah. So Tommy, so what'd you think? Was this your first time reading it, or did you revisit it?
I revisited it. It's like most of the books I had. I've read them years and years and years ago when they first came out, and I'm getting back to rereading them all again, because I do tend to like to do that with a lot of books I get. But I do enjoy the fact that you're seeing that Luke suffered greatly at the hands of the Emperor, and it wasn't all Garden of Roses. That there were repercussions from that battle that he had with the Emperor. And not only that, I also enjoy the fact that they're talking about how badly the Rebel Alliance suffered at the Battle of the Second Death Star over Endor. I like that as well.
Right, exactly. And then so we have Lewis here who says, we also don't know if Force lightning even has the same effect as normal electricity. Could just look like it. I know they said massive, was it decalcify, or what did they say? Decalcification? There we go. So it was like massive decalcification. So basically it softened his bones.
Yeah, it looks like regular lightning, but it's more.
Yeah.
And I think it hurts basically every cell in your body at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is why it's screaming.
Yeah.
Would you say it almost like it gave him osteoporosis in a way?
Yeah.
He had to. He was supposed to be in sick bay. Really, he wasn't supposed to move at all because of that. Because every time he moves, it makes the problem worse. And they kept on getting after him about that too. You need to go back to sick bay. I have a car zooming by. But anyways.
Oh, I thought that was not you.
No, it was me. Yeah, and so they kept on. They even Akbar and Mon Mothma were like, you need to take good, better care of yourself. And, Luke's like, well, I am needed again. And so we're going to get to that. So we know that the Rebel Alliance had taken huge losses, of course, because they're smaller compared to the Empire. Right. And so they still suffered, even though they won, they still suffered. Right. And so they get this the ship with this I didn't even write it down. What was it? It was it was from the Clone Wars, and it's a special what do you call it? A message ship that has a crystal that if they get into it without proper coding and stuff, it can deactivate. And so Wedge goes out to investigate and ends up triggering it. And so Luke is over there getting scolded by the Empire by Mon Mothma and stuff like that. And they're like, and he's like, I got to go take care of him. I want my ship. I got to go take care of him and stuff. So what'd you think about that little drama situation with Wedge, with him trying to stop that crystal from, exploding? and how he stuck his hand in there, and that whole situation with Luke Skywalker going to the rescue, even though he shouldn't be even flying right now because of his health and his state, and how he handles it with the lightsaber and stuff. So Teresa, what do you think about that?
Well, it made perfect sense because they were brothers in arms, and you don't leave a brother behind. So of course he would go out after they're not thinking about it. Wedge was playing the role of damsel in distress a bit in this. Save Star Wars, save me, or Skywalker. But it was just a good way to introduce Wedge, and it was perfectly in Luke's character to do that.
Oh yeah, of course. And he's like, forget about my health. He's the kind of person that would put himself last to help people out. That's how I see
what? Wedge holding that, stuff in position to keep the bomb from going off. And he had magnetism on both sides.
Yeah.
It reminds me of how Bond has to disable a bomb. And I think it was in the Spy Who Loved Me movie, Roger Moore. There was magnetism, and he had to pull something out of a nuke.
Yeah.
It was almost identical.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't even. It's been a while since I watched the Bond movies. My grandma is the one who introduced me to the Bond movies, but it's like I said, it's been a while, so I forgot all about that. So that's a nice catch. It is. And then, so Stieg, on top of that, what do you think about that whole situation? We were just talking about Wedge before we came live. So if you want to add more to that.
Well, Teresa said it best. You don't leave a brother behind, basically.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what Luke has been about from his introduction, right? He's self-sacrificing.
Yeah.
And it ties in with the old trilogy, everyone needs help.
Yeah.
And it's in a way, the way he does it in this one is he's risking his own life immediately. There's not even a thought about it, which I think also shows us that he is a Jedi Knight now. Because that's about sacrifice, isn't it?
Right. And I thought it was interesting too how that old Clone War technology was sent out discreet instead of them sending something through the holocron system, I guess you can say. And so I thought that was really, really interesting as well. So Rev Kev, what do you think about that whole situation there with Luke and Wedge and that old Clone Wars message device that was sent?
Yeah, well, I love the Clone Wars touch to it, just kind of bringing in some tech, especially because this was the first time I've ever read this book. So
you're the first timer. That's right. I knew one was. I forgot.
So this was the first time I'd gone through it, and then I had to keep going back to go, when was this written again? Because it was written before the prequels.
Yeah.
Right. So it was kind of cool that there was all this stuff that was starting to be introduced that you would only get more information about all of that after the prequels started coming out. So, so that I really loved, that it was, kind of doing that world building that we all love about Star Wars. And again, it was just a great plot point to keep Luke not at 100%.
Yeah.
Like he comes out of the battle with the Emperor. Okay, you need to rest. No, I can't rest. I've got to help a friend. And then, okay, now you really can't rest because now you've got this whole adventure that you got to go and get on.
Right.
So I thought it was just a great way to just
kick
it off and keep him moving and having to start this adventure with the handicap, really.
And here, I'm just gonna go there. And here, people want diversity and all this other stuff. And here, we're getting it in Star Wars even before they probably knew about Star Wars. Because here we have a handicapped Luke that wants to go and save the day.
That's it. He's got some drawbacks.
Right.
He's got soft bones. He's dealing with soft bones.
Right. He's a mushy kind of guy, literally mushy in a sense. And so, Tommy, what do you think about that? Because Wedge is one of the characters that people grown to love, and that his character was developed strongly in the EU more than the movies.
Well,
and
it's
stuff.
definitely somebody that Luke had made mention of enough times in the original trilogy as well. So, but yeah, when they go after this Imperial drone ship and the fact that Wedge is the first one out there trying to take care of things, he's trying to hold those two crystals apart. And I like the
Right.
fact that they use crystals too, because there's so many implications of how powerful the crystals are in that universe, you know, between lightsabers and actually in blasters. And I believe that they use crystals to a degree in the Death Star array as well.
Right.
So it's just another example of them building on the lore that was already there that Lucas had started with. But the fact that Luke has to not take the break, he's not afforded that opportunity, and it actually speaks volumes of how important his presence is in that universe, especially being a Jedi Knight now. And he basically has to save Wedge from himself. I guess he feels like he's kind of paying him back because they covered him when he was younger and he wasn't there to be there with them. So it's a little bit of like an addition to that story where he wanted to be there from the beginning, but he couldn't. And now he's afforded that opportunity to help all his friends out like he wanted to from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. And then after they get the message, and this goes into how big the Empire is, right? And their leaders basically were destroyed. However, we find out that not everybody in the Empire got the message because it happened so quickly, and it's like everything is not the dust hasn't settled yet, right? It's barely settling, maybe if anything. And they get this message from the planet Bakura asking for help. And so here we have Luke. He went out onto his ship to go help Wedge out. Wedge ends up in the Bacta tank, right? Because his hand was nearly crushed. And here they're listening to the message and stuff from the Bakurans. And Luke is like, been told to go lay down again, and he does for a while, but he still goes out there and he commandeers a repulsor chair or whatever it's called, and goes and make his way to the war room. But one thing I liked is that we get a visit from Obi-Wan again, and Obi-Wan's telling him, if you don't go and take care of this can affect not only the New Republic. They're not in the name of New Republic right now, but it would affect them, and it would affect the Empire and stuff. So, Teresa, what do you think about the visit from Obi-Wan?
Well, always welcome to see Obi-Wan. I had read the Thrawn Trilogy before this, and they had made a point at the beginning that Obi-Wan had visited Luke several times, but he was fading away, so that was going to be his last visit in the Heir to the Empire. Right. So when we see Obi-Wan here and making a normal appearance with him, I felt like that just really fit into what we knew from what happened later. And as I said, it's always nice to see Obi-Wan giving a little bit of a plot point.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm very sorry. You're welcome, Steve. He was playing DM, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. And literally, after Luke got that communicated with Obi-Wan, and he went and talked to Akbar. He contacted Akbar right away. He goes, "I need you to come here. We need to talk about the situation." And mind you, people really don't know about Force Ghosts because it's still kind of a brand new concept, because Qui-Gon taught Obi-Wan and Yoda, and then later Luke learned, and there was really no Jedi in the universe at the time, really, or the galaxy, right? So that wasn't a real known concept in the Force, right? And so they're kind of like, okay, if you say so, kind of deal. So that's the kind of thing I got from that. So Stig, what do you think about that whole situation, and Luke then going to talk to his superiors about they need to take action on this?
Well, I thought it was quite similar, I guess, to Obi-Wan when he shows up on Hoth, basically telling him where to go.
Yeah.
Didn't really go into too much details, but well, I don't know. It was done well enough.
Yeah. Okay, for Rev Kev, because you're the first time reader. So when you seen his like communication with Obi-Wan, and then he goes and's like, "Hey, Akbar, I need to see you," kind of deal. What did you think about the whole scenario? I was gonna skip on this one, but I'm like, I better not. So what did you think about that?
I'm a big believer in using Force Ghosts very, very sparingly.
Yeah. You should have worked for Disney, Lucasfilm.
Very sparingly. Like, show up, go to Dagobah. And that's it. Like, that's all you can do. Like, you can give little clues, little guidance.
Yeah.
But you can't drive the plot. So so that's where I just kind of so I thought it was well done, well handled. Again, it moved again, show up, it kind of drops some info, get out.
Get out of Dodge, because you really can't get involved, right?
It's become my thing. So whenever I read a new book that I've never read, it's like, and Force Ghost shows up, it's like, oh, please don't stay around for chapters.
It's actually a thing in fantasy books as well, because in this case, Force Ghosts are magic, right? It's part of the Star Wars magic.
Yeah.
And when it comes to magic, less is more.
Right.
The more magic you get, the less magical it is, because it's everywhere.
Yeah, if everybody has it, then it's not special anymore, right?
Which is something Tolkien did well, because you know Gandalf is a wizard and all, but you pretty much just get hints of it, of his power all through the books. He doesn't throw fireballs left and right or whatever, you know. You know enough to know that he's probably pretty powerful because he can do stuff other people can't.
Right.
You know, and I think that magic in fantasy books are always better if it's in the fringe, because if it's everywhere and if it's over explained, it becomes a science. It's no longer magic.
Yeah.
Right. That's a very good point.
And then so Open Air Lock says, I am pissed off because I know once I had the source book. I just checked the library and it's not there. Must have at some point.
So that's the source of his anger.
There we go. Yes. And then so Tommy, so
hatred.
Do it. So Tommy, what'd you think about that visit from Obi-Wan, that warning, that little bit of guidance, like you guys need to not just oversee this, you need to go ahead and follow through?
Well, I think it's important in a couple aspects. Number one, it's always good to be able to get those little throwbacks, you know, as far as like the characters that we grew up with the original movie. But I think it's also important because Luke is, even though he's a Jedi Knight, he's still a little bit unsure of himself. So it's like that guidance that he still needs and he still requires. It's showing him that his hero's journey is not completed yet, that he's still learning. And I think that's actually important for the character itself, because if the character has already learned everything he was going to learn through the first three movies, it kind of makes him kind of boring, because now there's no fault to him. So there's still fault to him, and he still needs that guidance. And I personally like when they had those moments. I mean, eventually, you know, he will not need those presences anymore because he will be sure of himself, or at least as sure of himself as he can be. But I think it's still important, especially showing how everything just ended with Return of the Jedi, how he was weakened through the fight, how he was still unsure of a lot of things, and he was still dealing with the loss of not only bringing his father back, but then losing him again as well. So I thought it was very important that they actually had that scene.
Right. Very. And then, so that, excuse me, that, you know, I thought was a nice little tidbit. I still think they did Obi-Wan well and the Force Ghost theme well, because we know that they pretty much can't interfere too much. They can offer guidance and such. And I think today the new lore is taking advantage of that, where it's like the, you know, like from Obi-Wan's, you know, statement to Vader in the OT, you know, I'm going to be more powerful. If you strike me down, I'll be more powerful than you can ever imagine, or whatever. I'm paraphrasing. And I think they took advantage of that, you know, for the sake of the protagonist. And I
strike
think
me
that's,
down, I shall become more powerful than you could possibly imagine.
yep. Yep. And so I thought that was just disingenuous of them, because they literally took advantage of that. And that's what's going to happen when they do the Obi-Wan series, is they're going to take advantage of these lines that they say in the OT, just to make, stuff that, just to give us Vader versus Obi-Wan and stuff like that. And this is not about that. I'm just saying that I'm just comparing and contrasting, I guess you can say. So,
well, they kind of took away death from
Mhm.
Star Wars with that, because
Exactly.
now a force ghost can wield a lightsaber, according to Episode 9, and they can make lightning strike stuff. And I'm like, what's the downside of dying if you can do
Yeah.
anything
None.
and more?
None. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What was the point of Obi-Wan telling Luke that he could not interfere?
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. All right. So let's move on from that. Let's just move on from that. So the Sea-Rook, I keep on saying Sea-Rook, but they say Sea-Rook on the Audible, but it's Sea-Rook, and they are a reptilian species. And, we did see, the High Republic wanting reptilians or dinosaurs as part of the lore. So, but, here we go. So we have the Sea-Rook here, and they are from the unknown regions. And so I thought that was very interesting, because we also have the Vong that are from outer galaxy, right? But we have the Chiss from the unknown regions as well. So that's not very much explored. So not very many species and planets are known from the unknown regions. And so the message basically says that, they need help, and they find out that the Sea-Rook has, what is it called? Entachment. So they basically take the soul from a human's body and place it into a ship, into a fighter style ship. And so once the rebel alliance decided to take action and go, and we already know, and we'll get into this more about Leia and how she's feeling about her father. But once we get into the part of that where they're like, okay, we're going to go and we're going to respond. We need to go and respond, because we need them to start. We need to have everybody start coming on our side to start building, the government back up, and blah, blah, blah and stuff. So Luke encounters one of their ships, and he kind of feels like it's odd when they go over there, when they start, when they get to the Bakura and stuff. So what do you guys think about this in Techment kind of deal when you guys read about it? Teresa?
Well, having read the New Jedi Order now, I see that there were little bits and pieces of things that they were either setting in place or they got ideas from for this, that living things would be the power behind what you were doing. I also thought it was incredibly creepy that not only were they doing this to people, to humans, they were doing it to their slaves. So there definitely was an aspect of it that was truly, truly horrible. It wasn't as though it were volunteers helping out with this.
Yeah.
So that was pretty creepy.
Yeah, it was like when I first read it, and this is my first book, like getting into the EU. This is my first book. Yeah. So with that being said, when I first read this right here, I was like, holy crap. I thought it was like very eerie, and reading it is eerie in a sense, but when you listen to it on Audible and you hear the actual enactment and how they do it and stuff, and how the person screams, because the person's screaming right there, and how the Sea-Rook was like, oh, it doesn't hurt at all. And Dev right here, this force sensitive guy, and I'm going to ask you guys what you guys feel about him in a few minutes, but I thought that was just, it's kind of like coming from like a horror kind of movie in a sense. Like they could make this into a horror movie. So Stig, go ahead.
Well, the whole plot, right, with the Sea-Rook basically kidnapping people and all, it's kind of like the classic alien abduction trope.
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit what they
literally.
Yeah, because they do it in X-Files, right? It's pretty much the same. They abduct people and mess with them and try to make them their own, units in a way.
Yeah.
So I always, well, when I was reading it, I was like, yeah, it's basically the alien abductions of Star Wars, because it was an unknown race as well, right? They'd never seen them before, and they were reptilian, which is also a thing with the alien abductions, because they, you've seen those fake pictures, right, of George Bush being a reptile, and all kinds of stuff. That's actually why he that's why he takes Viagra, because he has an erectile dysfunction.
Oh God.
Oh no.
I need a little clip of first dig. I do.
Oh no.
All right, Rev. Okay, so since you're new to this book, please let me know what you felt about this whole scenario. I mean, there's so much we can talk about this for 3 hours, right? But I don't want to talk that long, but still, what do you think? What you really think about this?
I mean, they were definitely different than anything else I've ever seen in Star Wars. So that was, so I appreciated that it was a different kind of threat than what we've normally get in a Star Wars adventure. I don't know if I missed it while I was reading it, but I just felt it was lacking a little bit in the explanation for me of like how does the human soul power their ship? Like why? Like how did this come about? I would have liked a little bit more backstory, maybe, or like again, maybe they said it and I just missed it, but it just kind of felt a little weird, like it was using some language, like like soul, like if I remember correctly, and it just felt like outside of Star Wars language. It felt a little odd. And then when I was actually reading it, again, because they were a new species to me, I'd never heard of it before, so I Googled the name, and I was like, oh, I don't like the look of them. I don't like the way the artists are drawing them. Like I look at this picture and I go, oh, that looks silly. So actually, in my head, I actually pictured them looking more like the Skeksis from the Dark Crystal.
Oh,
like kind of lizard, bird-like creatures. Like
with their bald head and stuff.
Yeah, and in clothing and armor and weapons.
Yeah.
Whereas just like a dinosaur building spaceships and dinosaurs building technology just was kind of like,
That's exactly how I picture them too.
So once I thought of them like Skeksis, and they're kind of creeping around and they're stealth-like and they hypnotize you with their eyes, I'm like, okay, now they're cool. So,
you know what? Speaking of the language used in this, Leia refers to their language as zombie-like. Right. I didn't like that because zombie, that's a word they shouldn't be using in Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do they use that word in the other book, the Death Trooper book or whatever?
Actually, no.
That one yet.
They actually didn't call them zombies. Also, in a different book, and I've actually seen this in several other fantasy books. Terry Brooks has done it. Someone smashed the China.
That's right. We were talking about that before.
Yeah, that's it wasn't in this book. It was in a different one. But they should go with porcelain, shouldn't they? They shouldn't be calling it China,
right?
Because
China doesn't exist in this galaxy.
Exactly.
It's named after the country, right?
Yeah. Right.
And I've seen the word China being used probably 5 or 6 times in fantasy books that are on different worlds and everything, So
yeah. And speaking of that, Coca-Cola exists in Disney Star Wars.
How was this?
I know. Okay, hot chocolate does exist in George Lucas era of Star Wars, but hot chocolate comes from a plant, which it could be from a different world, a different thing, whatever, but Coca-Cola is manufactured.
For
sure. It actually has a specific recipe.
Right.
And it's I'm pretty sure Coca-Cola sponsoring the theme parks. and
Yeah.
it's kind of part of the deal. Make it part of Star Wars, right?
Right. So
Mhm.
tell me.
And I'll tell you one thing: George Lucas would not have been for that. Putting Coca-Cola into Star Wars or any kind of brands.
So why do
Yeah.
you think he called them white slavers?
Exactly.
All right, Tommy. So what do you think about this, like this introduction of this enactment and, the whole plot behind this and how they're using the human souls to power the ships?
I actually like the enactment. I mean, I see what everybody's saying about that. One of the things, Rev Kev, I will say about that is they do talk about it, and they don't go into great detail, but they talk about how they were using the enactment on the PWEX. And they said, unfortunately, their souls and their life forces did not seem to last as long. And they stumbled across this colony of humans, and they found that their souls lasted longer than the PWEX. So, I mean, it's part of something that they do. They're a little bit of cowards. They don't like to do their own fighting, and that's part of the reasons why they want to steal souls to put into not only vessels to fight other people, but they put them in their droids, they put them in their ships as well as part of their computer systems.
Yeah.
They do run into that a lot. I like the fact that it also kind of hints at a little bit of our past when you talk about vampires and stuff like that, because they're not just taking blood, they're actually taking part of somebody's soul or their spirit away. So it kind of plays on that aspect a little bit as well.
So was it more of so again, like I said, I may have missed it. Was it more of like a power source to power these things, or to give it like a semi-consciousness control to it? That's what I missed.
It was a little bit of both. It was both the power and to give it a consciousness as well.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so Dijon, hopefully I said that right. Remind me, what was the time difference between Truce at Bakura versus the courtship of Princess Leia? Was this truce before or after courtship? It's before. This is just a day after the Battle of Endor. And then courtship of Princess Leia is like, what, 4 years after? Something like that.
Yes, it was right before they got married. And they got married, I believe it was 4 years after the Battle of Endor.
Yeah. So it was around that time frame. So we are seeing just the events right after the Battle of Endor. And so this book, I sometimes will recommend this book, right? Instead of reading and skipping ahead like 3-4 years after to the Thrawn Trilogy, because I think this is a fun book. But I also try to get the feel of the person. Sometimes people will be put off with this book more than the Thrawn Trilogy, but that's, I do recommend this book out to everybody. So we have, they arrive at Bakura, and the rebels, basically, offer aid to them, and they they have the commander Patir Thanos, which I called Thanos earlier, but Thanos, and then so we get introduced to some new characters. The Thanos, we get who else was in there? Let's see here.
Governor Norris.
Yeah, Nurse. Yeah, that's how you say that, Nurse. And I'll just pull it up right here. So we get introduced to, and that's in the way. Good Lord, Alora, get your shit together. And so we have Dev, which is the Force sensitive being, and we find out that his mother was strong in the Force, and that he learned just a few minor things from her, like sensing other people who are Force sensitive. And that's the extent that we just learn about him. And then we have Norris, and we have Thanos, and then we have Beldon, and then we have Epi Beldon, which I think is his aunt or mother or something like that. I forget the relationship right there. And so with Dev Sibwara, who is also a slave to the Saruk, what do you guys think about learning about this Force sensitive? Teresa.
Oh, well, obviously someone that was going to be somebody Luke was going to save or explain or force-explain to about what is actually going on. Unfortunately, this whole, I'm going out, I'm having an adventure, and oh, me, I'm stumbling upon a Force-sensitive person. it was getting a bit old because I'd already read the Kevin Anderson one.
Yeah. Oh, the trilogy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, fine, another Force sensitive. And I was thinking, gosh, Vader sucked because he was supposed to hunt all these people down and kill them. They're under every rock.
Kind of a good point, but I think because this was in a sense, in the timeline wise, this was Luke's introduction to with him considering and honoring his master's words about continuing to teach new Jedi, right? And create the new order, basically. So this is his like first encounter of someone that could be potentially a student. And so I think that was the point of this, but I get what you're saying, especially with Vader, because we know Vader, hunted down, and try to recruit, as dark siders, or whatever, other Force sensitive beings. And so here we have that his mom survives and stuff like that, but it could be maybe the location. We know that, the Outer Rim worlds weren't very much, patrolled by the Empire as much. Yeah. And that could be another reason. That's why, Luke was hidden out in Tatooine. And another reason is because Vader would never really visit there anymore. So, Stig, what'd you think about Dev? Are you with us?
He's meditating on the Force right now.
There you go.
Yeah, he is. All right, Rev.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I was muted.
Okay.
Well, I hated the guy.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
want to hear this.
I thought he was whiny, Stockholm syndrome-ish, stupid,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, good. He died. Don't have to see him in other books. Get rid of him. And I thought the chapters with him were boring. Even though it fleshed out the Siruk, it was dull and
with like, now let's go ahead and make you happy again.
Yeah, I mean, how many times did I have to make him happy? It's the middle part of this book I thought was the weakest part.
Okay.
The beginning and the end were fine, but the middle was really tiring, which is ironic since the author is named Tyers. But didn't like him.
Yeah. And then so Rev Kev, since you're brand new to this book and we're all revisiting, what'd you think about that? And I'm going to add this here too. So the Siruk are fascinated with Force users because of course Dev is their servant, right? And then they find out about Luke because Dev basically gives him away. So what'd you think about that? Dev character and all that.
Yeah, well, again, it set it up. I thought, being introduced to this new threat and, like what this entekment can do and kind of the power that they can have. It felt a little bit, again, just a little bit like the whole Phaline, the pheromone thing to control people and all that. Like it's like every lizard species has a way of hypnotizing, humans.
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of like the Jungle Book with the big giant snake, right? With the googly eyes hypnotizing Mowgli. So in a way, I got it. So it helped me to kind of grasp the threat of these aliens through him, which I thought was cool. But I would agree it was a little overdone. Yeah. Like the starting to come back, rehypnotize, starting to come back, rehypnotize, start to come back, rehypnotize. It's like, dude, either keep your slaves drugged or don't. Like it's kind of like, it just felt a little too back and forth. But again, and again, helped to set up why them capturing Luke Skywalker would be so crucial to them. Because they've gotten a taste of it from him. Right. What potentially a Force user could do with their technology.
So. Well, and then on top of that, because like I said, Dev wasn't necessarily trained. He knew how to sense other Force sensitives because that was the initial level, I guess you could say he was, right?
Mhm.
And so but with Luke Skywalker, he's like he's a Jedi Knight. He's still growing. So yes, of course they're like very fascinated with him because he's beyond more, like how they explain how they sense each other in this book, I thought was very interesting or very fascinating because it's like this big glow that they like when we get to Gariel and how Luke senses her, and we're going to get into that here pretty soon and move along and get out of the beginning of the book. But yeah, so just how they sense each other and stuff like that was very fascinating. So Tommy, oh, are you there? Tommy?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so what'd you think about Dev, learning about Dev and, what he means to the Sea Rook and his force sensitivity and all that?
Quite honestly, I did find the character Dev kind of tiring.
Okay.
It's the same thing, hearing the same story over and over again about him being controlled by them, especially for somebody who's supposed to be force sensitive. The fact that he can't even mentally fight back against him or is not even trying. It became tiring. It became a repetitive cycle, and it did kind of wear me out a little bit. And I was not that sympathetic towards his character at the end when he didn't make it. No,
yeah, it's like you did this to yourself, right? You did this to yourself. You allowed this to keep happening. And blah blah blah.
No,
blah.
Rorschach, you can't eat my headphone wire. Such bad piggies.
Oh my god. So we have one of the leaders here is from Alderaan, and I forgot to write down which one was. I think it's one of the was it Thanos? Because Han got jealous over Leia getting the attention, and they one of that was an Alderaanian survivor or whatever, and so we start seeing more development.
If I remember correctly, Alora, it was like one of the lieutenants. It was one of the Imperial lieutenants.
Yeah,
it was a subordinate. Yeah, it wasn't any of the two main guys in charge of the Imperial forces.
Yeah. Let's see here, Imperial Commander. I'm looking at it right now. It doesn't say exactly. It just tells what they are and like what their rank is and stuff in this book. But I thought that was very interesting. So we start getting more into more of Leia and Han, and then how Leia is feeling. It's like every time we see Leia doubt or have some fear or see a shadow, she is thinking of Vader because she's.
Best part of the book, though. Was when Han and Leia were having a little date on the Falcon, and they found out that Chewie had made a little nest for them behind the crate.
Yes! I love that because I love some romance.
Chewie was also underused in this. Him and Wedge.
Yeah,
they were in there, but you could pretty much cut all their scenes, and nothing would have changed.
Other than one scene where they went to the dinner. Remember, they were invited to Beldon's family dinner there so that they can get to know each other informally so that they can do proper, like negotiations for the truce and stuff. And, they're like, at first Leia and Han was like, are they going to allow Chewie? And then, then they said, go ahead and bring him. And then one of the Imperial, I think it was Thanos, I believe, was like, why is this alien here kind of deal?
Yeah, which backs up the video that Open Airlock made about xenophobia in the Empire.
Yeah,
you know. Palpatine didn't have it though; he used the aliens, but the Empire as a whole was very,
he used the aliens to his advantage as slaves.
Yeah, but
I thought it was actually telling too that the aliens were actually intimidated by Palpatine, and they decided not to move until they knew he was gone. And somehow they knew it, yet the Imperials didn't. I think if I remember correctly, didn't they explain that Dev had felt his presence blink out, and that's how they knew it?
I am trying to recall that. I know that when they got the Emperor had a deal with the Sea Rook about getting the soul ships, basically the soul ship fighters, basically from the Sea Rook, and so they were there because of Palpatine.
Yeah, see, 'cause that's what came out in the original message, right? He said that we were invited by your emperor or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was ever explained.
Yeah. So I mean, that's very ambiguous, I guess you could say, or vague. But
Or are they just lying?
yeah, that's the thing too, and that's probably one thing that's probably not too clear. But so with that, let's go back to Leia and them, because we know that
Laura, one other thing. I knew where the chapter was, so I looked up his name. He was a captain. Captain Khan Durgan.
Durgan, okay. That's right. I didn't write down his name. And I remember that, because he's from Alderaan and stuff, and how he was treating Leia, and because he is her princess, right? And stuff, and Han had a little bit of jealousy going on there in a sense. But let's get into it. I know we're kind of hopping kind of all over the place a little bit, just a little tiny bit, but let's get into Leia's character in this book here. We know that, her and Han stayed down to help clean up Alderaan, about like everything that happened there. It suggested that it was just more than cleaned up, that they did more than just cleaned up down there. But so we start seeing more and more of the relationship start to, form and come together. And though she's still afraid of Vader, and she has every right to be afraid of him, but finding out too, it's haunting her, because now she knows that he is her dad, her father, and she's not coming into terms with that. And so anything that she sees that has a resemblance to him, like capes and hoods that are dark or shadows or whatever, it just like triggers her and stuff like that. So
a little side note, another highlight was when Leia lowered her head and ran into an Imperial head first. She basically bull rushed him with her head.
Yes.
Yeah, she just head butted him in the chest or whatever it was.
And she's tiny too.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. All right. So Miss Martin Muses, what do you think about like Leia's whole like arc in here, on how she's still like coming to terms, like fresh new information that Luke gave her, so she finally had a chance to sit down and digest it, and how they talked about not telling people just yet. They all swore to each other, Han, Luke, and Leia, that they wouldn't tell anybody until the time's right.
Yeah, I found that scene was particularly moving, not only because Luke holds out his hand and she holds his hand, then Han holds all their hands, and then Chewie joins in and calls them honor family.
Yes.
Oh, it was so sweet.
I could feel it in your voice too. You're like,
yeah, well, you know me. I love that kind of touchy-feely stuff. But also cemented the fact that the same life debt that Chewie felt he had with Han, it was now being extended to Luke and to Leia, that they were all becoming a family. I liked that part of it. I also liked the fact that she was completely resistant to the idea of Darth Vader being her father. She was like, I did have a father, and his name was Bail Antilles. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Bail Antilles?
Oh, did I say the wrong name?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Bail Antilles was the guy on A New Hope.
He was the one that wiped the droids.
Yeah, my bad. Oh, gee. Okay, the truth comes out.
Note,
he was really the one. He was really the one that knocked up Padme.
You heard it here first, everybody.
There you go. That's it.
Gosh, it ruined my line even, because I was like,
is that the new canon or the old canon? What is that?
Bail Organa.
This book though predates the sequel trilogy by almost a decade, I believe. And there it is,
5 years.
Bail Organa.
It's Bail Organa. Yes, I knew his name was Bail
George
Organa.
Lucas used the name Bail Organa in the sequel trilogy, prequel trilogy. Bail Organa was not mentioned in the original trilogy at all.
Yeah.
Well, no, not in the original trilogy. I think that his name did come though from some of the EU or somewhere, because I remember before the prequels knowing that was the name.
Well, it was in this book and also in the old Marvel comics.
Okay.
He's also referred to as Bail Organa. He's mentioned.
Yeah.
So where did that come from? George used it, clearly.
No plans. George didn't plan shit out, Stig.
Yeah.
It all just came out of thin air.
Yeah,
Right.
because I don't think he's even mentioned in the novelization of A New Hope, because I read that one earlier this year. I got the the remake of the book, basically.
I got to revisit that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
so
it's the same thing with Antilles. I mean, we don't really know his first name at first because he's only referred to as Captain Antilles.
yeah,
Mhm.
and Wedge is not referred to as Wedge Antilles either. It's just referred to as Wedge. They
Mhm.
never say Wedge Antilles in the movies.
Mhm.
Good night.
Night,
Or wait, not night, but yeah, you know what I mean. Have a good
Be
night.
well, Lady Toriel.
Yeah, good time at work.
Yes,
Take
exactly.
care and be well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, as I was saying before, I messed up my line, which I had it all prepared.
You had this magnificent drama, like kind of moment, and you ruined it. It went
Yeah,
flat.
but her real father was Bail Organa, not Darth Vader, and especially for her, it makes complete sense that Vader was always going to be this vague, not father, rather Anakin Skywalker, even the good version of it, because the father and the mother that she knew were the parents that raised her.
Yeah. And so I'm just gonna, because I know you love like these gushy moments and these moments of like of just like these nice heart warm felt moments. So we know that Anakin visits her. So I'm kind of sticking around just a little tiny bit, but we know that Anakin visits her, and he comes as a Force ghost. But guess what, everybody? He's not that strong as a Force ghost. He can't, appear like how Obi-Wan has, right? So he's not that strong. And he even tells her, I won't be around long, but I'll be listening in, and I hope that you find peace with me one day, right? So what'd you think about that, Teresa? And then I'll now have everybody tune in too, and also with how Han helped her out afterwards. They're a little, yeah.
Well, I always love anything to do with Han and Leia. I am a sucker for romance.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking you this now.
Of course. And they did. They fed us a little bit. They gave something to us. They gave us a bone for that. But I actually was never fond of Anakin's appearance in this Force Ghost, faded Force Ghost voice, or no. I felt like it was a little too hokey.
Okay.
And perhaps would have been more powerful if it had been more the memory of him that was haunting her. It was a little too in your face. My opinion.
Okay. Awesome. And Stig, what'd you think about that?
I have to agree with Teresa a little bit, but still, yes. I didn't mind the scene either. And he showed up as a young man, which the change George Lucas made to the old trilogy, right? He had Anakin appear as a young man in it, which was might have been intended. I don't know, but so the author kind of got lucky with that one, I think.
Right.
And he also had dark hair, and she would not know that, I think, when given the Return of the Jedi version we had back then with Sebastian Shaw, who had gray hair.
Right.
So maybe she got some notes from Lucas before writing the book. Probably did. All the others did. So I don't know. Something to maybe look into. I don't know.
Yeah, I will. This book came out, like I said, in 1993, and then the special editions came out after like 96 or whatever. So there you go. So there's a little bit of history there. So yeah, I do think, and people don't think that there was no communication between George and his whole entire company. He had different departments. He had the film department, he had the licensing department, all of that, and he had people who kept the continuity and all of that. People don't think or can't even imagine, and I don't know why, that George wouldn't be communicating with his business, his employees, on building the lore. And I think it's very I think they make George look stupid, saying, "Oh well, he never liked the EU, and he never got spoke with the authors or with his company about continuity." And I think that that they make, when they do that, they don't think, and they make him look stupid.
Yeah, in a lot of the omnibuses, the comic omnibuses, there's stuff at the back about the writing of the comics and all, and a lot of them mention how they spoke to George about this and that, and got feedback. So some people got letters from him, which said, "Don't do this. You can't do that. You can do this." And with the Force Unleashed comic, there was a lot of stuff about it, and they said George had to approve the story elements from this game to the canon. It was canon. They said it flat out. George had to approve it for canon.
Right.
And they also specified that the gameplay stuff in it was not canon, because you can't have a main character that gets shot 5,000 times.
Exactly.
I all the damn time.
Yeah.
Die, respawn. Die, respawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, with the Force Unleashed, the novel is the canon one. That's why they did the novel.
Right.
So they have the canon story. But in terms of the game, it was just in all Star Wars games that had two endings, the light side ending was always the canon ending.
Yeah.
That was a rule. And the story elements were the cutscenes and stuff like that from the video games. They were the canon things. How you got from cutscene to cutscene is up to the player, right?
Right.
Do you use a gun? Do you use a lightsaber? Whatever. So that's how that worked. I mean, they can't have video games be canon, basically, because everyone will play it differently.
Right.
So it's basically just the story elements, the basic ones. And if there's a novelization, that's the version to go by.
Right. So Rev Kev, so what do you think about Leia's arc in this, and like her having that visit from Anakin? Because we know that like I said, she jumps at any inkling that reminds her of Vader because of the news that she got that she's his daughter and stuff, and then how Han basically handled the situation after that happened. So what do you think about that whole scenario with her?
Yeah, well, I think it fit really well. I mean, because I think we it's easy to forget, but because it happened off camera, but Leia was tortured by Vader on the Death Star.
Yeah, like that's one of the first things we see is her.
Like with the interrogation droid, and and her resistance to the mind probe is impressive. And it's like tortured her. Tortured her for information. So
yeah, and then I'm gonna follow up on that when she was
like, "Oh, that's my dad."
Yeah, I could forgive you. Damn quads, they're like zooming around. It's late here, and they're zooming around my neighborhood. But she's like, I could forgive you for torturing me, and he's like, and then Anakin like bows his head like in shame.
Yeah,
he's like,
but I can't forgive you for doing it to Han.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of cool. I really like the fact that Anakin shows up.
Yeah.
In it. Again, because you got that closure of him and Luke in Return of the Jedi, like that redemption story, that forgiveness arc that's there, and to kind of for him to just show up and ask Leia for forgiveness. It's like I'm a sucker for forgiveness stories, so that's like I think that's awesome. And so and her just saying, no, it's not happening.
No, not happening.
And no, it's a little fresh, but
and I don't know if you read Tatooine Ghost, but
I haven't read that one yet. Either.
Okay. Yes, you need to read that because this right here will follow up into Tatooine Ghost and her discovery of her Skywalker heritage. It's a great. I think it's a great story. But what you think about like Han's interaction with her? Again, how Han interacted with her in this is also similar to what you're going to see in Tatooine Ghost, which I highly recommend to read.
Okay.
Yeah. So
it's actually the redemption story in the Star Wars EU, kind of.
Yes.
Oh, very cool. I
Yeah.
will take that off the bookshelf as soon as we're done because I got another book to read. So there you go.
Yeah. And you're going to be jumping over some books there, but that's okay. It's like this book kind of complements to a Tatooine Ghost in a way with Leia's arc with her father.
Yeah.
So
cool.
if you're interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to check that out. But with Han Solo, again, it was cool to see their relationship just starting to be figured out.
Yeah.
Because, yes, they, oh, I love you. And it's like, okay, sort of based on fighting in war and things like that. Now you got to figure out what this relationship thing is. And how do you move from picking on each other and insulting each other to actually getting married and starting a family. So it was cool to see some of that start to take root and start to grow. Yeah,
exactly. And Tommy, what did you think about this whole like arc with Leia, her coming or not coming to terms yet, like the still in shock, I guess you can say. And what do you think about Anakin appearing to her and Han's response?
I think it fit. I mean, I think it was one of those things, like you said, Luke got his closure. Leia really didn't get hers, and she was very drawn aback from being able to even accept that he was her father. So I think it's part of the story where it has to unwind, because in order for her to be able to forgive herself for things and obviously she still hasn't forgiven herself for a lot of things. She still sees like everything that happened with Han as being part of her fault. So in order to be able to forgive herself, she's got to be able to forgive him as too. And I think towards the end, we start to see that, at least the acceptance end of it.
Yeah. Exactly. And then, so I'm going to get into one more character arc, and that's Luke's with meeting the Senator, basically Gario Captison. And so this is basically, I wouldn't say his first crush, but he is very infatuated with her because he senses her in the Force. She's got a strong Force essence, I guess you can say. And so, Teresa, what do you think about the whole arc between Luke and Gario?
Well, she was the first in line of a lot of women that aren't Mara.
You're a punk.
And
it's true though.
I know. wasn't Lumaya?
Yeah, she was a love interest for a while too.
Yeah, before Gario.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, because it was still they were still in the Empire era, the OT era, I think. When but
well, lest we forget that
stuff in the comics too.
Yeah.
Unless we forget that Leia was for a while his crush.
He was infatuated with her for a little while. Yeah.
So, and to be honest, I think that's all I can say about that. She's not Mara. It's just one of the many. Just, oh, look, it's a chick. It's not going to go anywhere. And then goodbye.
He's like the most friend-zoned man in the galaxy.
His moisture farm was a very lonely place.
And he didn't even have
the farmer's life in the middle of nowhere. Like the dude's not.
I'm gonna say something dirty, but a lot of moisture and very little plowing.
Oh no!
Sorry.
Oh no!
Oh my God.
Well, he did have banthas.
Is that typically a Swedish problem, Steve?
Sadly, no. They read like crazy.
Oh.
That's the problem with the Burman.
And then Soul Assassin, he's been force blocked more than I could.
Yeah, exactly. He's terrible with women. It's like he has a slight creep vibe.
Really?
I just found it's like, dude, you just met this girl. Like,
yeah, what
like it's like
I just want to be lonely. That's what I got too. I don't want to be lonely.
Like, okay, I mean, I was pretty sad in high school too, but come on, that was pretty bad.
Yeah, like have some dignity, man.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah. Put aside the power converters and live a little.
Maybe because he didn't get to go to Tashi Station for the last time.
That's it,
He had
exactly.
You know what? There's
What?
there's a female character on Tatooine in the first movie that's cut out
Right.
Amy.
that he also had an interest in.
Yeah.
Like any girl who shows up, there's a girl. There's a girl.
Yeah.
There's a girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Stig, what'd you think about that whole situation? Like how, his interest with Gariel and his just his character arc with that.
Well, I absolutely liked Gariel as a character. She was an excellent character,
Right.
and I think the two Imperials were too.
Mhm.
But like I said, the middle part of the book dragged on.
Yeah.
A lot was due to Dev, but Luke and Leia had to travel back and forth on that planet quite a bit.
They did.
I mean, they were taking taxis back and forth. It was kind of like when someone's playing a video game and they're stuck and they're using, the fast travel thing back and forth to see if they missed something.
Yeah.
It was a bit like that. It was back and forth, talk to this again, talk to that again.
Right.
And but I thought Gariel was a great character, and that thing with Epi as well, which good plot point. I thought.
Right.
And there was Luke teaching her something about the Jedi, or rather, he pretty much did show don't tell.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Force healing at that.
Yeah, kind of.
He showed her how to force heal herself by going into a trance.
Yeah,
and just in case, because I remember you said earlier you couldn't remember offhand. Epi was Gariel's grandmother.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, liked Gariel. I liked the Imperials. Liked Epi. Most of the characters were good, except for I didn't like the Cyruk and the Dev.
Okay. Because it felt to you, and I'm getting this, it felt to you like when they went back to their chapter or their section, it just kind of repeated over a little bit, huh? Oh, we need to make Dev happy again, and we need to intact another character. Oh, we need da kind of deal, but it was over and over and over.
They're going to a meeting again.
Mm-hmm.
How many meetings did they have in this book? 7?
I didn't count.
It was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently they were a committee.
Yeah, that was a committee. Han was right.
Han seems to be right a lot of times. All right, Rev Kev. So what did you think about that? Because, like Mara said, I mean, not Mara, Teresa said about Mara, it wasn't Mara, basically. And that's all she had to say about that. So
yeah.
We already know in a few words what she thinks about that.
Yeah, but there are some neat things that were hinted at. And again, I don't know, again, just kind of reading it if I missed parts of it or whatnot, but just, so you got these hints that when the Bakuran people, they're long lived.
Right.
Right. So like the grandmother was 130 something. So there was all these time drops of people's age. And this idea that they were somehow enhanced.
Yeah.
Which so I was kind of flipping back, what did I miss on here? And so I was trying to figure that out. And then her religion. So they kept bringing up her faith, her religion that doesn't like Jedi.
Right.
And it's okay, so because I'd like everybody equal and normalized, and Luke was kind of poking at that. And so I like that stuff, those nuances about characters.
Mm-hmm.
I like when they add those little kind of details in there. I find it just makes them a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it kind of flushes it out, the character a little bit more.
They would have got away with it if it wasn't for those pesky Jedi.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. And so what'd you think
Yeah.
about, because I know like they introduced like a drink, nama, what is it called? Nama fruit or naman fruits or whatever.
Namana or something like that.
Namana, there you go, namana fruits, and and how they use it as a drink, and I think it's more of an alcohol drink versus
And the candy and
that kind of makes you feel like very warm and cozy.
yeah, it's drugs. It's like
Right.
it's like welcome to Canada with legal edibles. You know, like that's what it is. It's like
You want some banana death sticks?
Yeah, we know what the Reverend's been sampling tonight.
I'm just saying it's legal. I'm not
I
saying
know. I know. I understand.
Also, this book explained why the Empire was interested in that planet. It was because of their repulsor lift technology.
Right.
And
which they
all
use
that
for everything.
Yes.
Chairs and beds and like every sofa, everything was repulsor lift beds and repulsor lift chairs.
Right.
It was like yeah. So
yeah, it's so the Empire were there for a reason, which is something which is kind of a mess in Disney, because they occupy Tatooine. Why? To get moisture?
Exactly. Need a glass of
They
water.
were very lonely, Sieg.
Yeah, it was lonely on the galaxy front.
Yes. Hello.
Hello. All right, so Tommy, so what'd you think about the whole situation, I guess you could say, with Luke and Gariel and what he thought about her, and maybe just in her character in general? So what'd you think about him or her?
I didn't mind the whole romantic aspect to it, but I think it was a bit overplayed. Just the same way like Devin is constant, I need to be reconditioned over and over, was overplayed.
Yeah.
I think maybe if they used it a little bit more sparingly, it would have been better. Her character herself was very interesting, especially how she initially hated and despised him because of her culture and because of their religion, just hating the Jedi, and how she wind up being able to see things through a different lens because she was willing to open up her mind that there could be another possibility, especially when she's seen what happened with her grandmother. So I think that was all well done. I just think the whole romantic aspect could have been used just slightly less to be a little bit more impactful.
Yeah, because when they were at dinner and then how they sat everybody down and Luke ended up being by Gariel, and then Chewbacca, and she she senses Luke, and she's like, this is awkward. And then she asked Chewie, you want to move so you could sit with your people? And Luke kind of shoots him off, like a message, I guess you could say. And so Chewie's making fun of him, and Gariel's in the middle, and she's like, oh my God, this is so awkward. I was like, that was just reading that and listening to that was kind of awkward, in a sense. And, so I get that there. And then what's interesting is that Gariel would return back in the Thrawn Trilogy in 1995. So she's in that. And then the Force Heretic trilogy as well is the Truce. Our book Bakura is revisited in the Force Heretic trilogy in New Jedi Order. So, and yeah. And so that's just a little history on that, on continuity, on where she lies again in the timeline and where Bakura lies again in the timeline as well. And for me, with Gariel, I thought she was very interesting. I was very curious. I wish we would have known the religion she was talking about. That would have been really interesting because I love reading about that. Like I have the Jedi versus Sith, the book about the Force. And it has all the Force societies, breaks down the Sith, it breaks down the Jedi, it breaks down like different Force societies as well, like the anti monks and stuff. And so you get a clear, information about that. But, nowhere do we get any information of like what religion is she's talking about. And that would have been fun to explore. Now, if you guys know in the chat or anybody who's listening to this after this is published on my channel, tell me in the comics and let me know if there is a reference. I haven't found one yet. Maybe it's in the source book and I don't have that yet. So there we go. And let's see here. What does, weren't all of their repulsor lift devices intact? So some people were turned into chairs.
Yeah, I mean, every planet or every government needs a chairman, right?
Many years since I read this book. Yes. So now we're revisiting it here. So let's go on. So that's a little history on her as well. And so basically they do meet, like Stig said, and I agree that they meet, and Luke knows, he gets a vision in the Force. He knows that the Sirook wants him, right? So he knows that he's going to get captured. And we also know that there's hostility because the Empire did not believe that the Emperor and Vader fell at Endor. So they have that. They don't believe that. They had to confirm that with them and stuff, but they don't want they don't want the Rebel Alliance there either. And so there was a staged hostility in their hangar Bay 12 where the Falcon's at, where 2 Mon Calamaris got leave and they went down planet side, and they try to pick a fight with them, saying that they're the CC Rook there. And so what do you guys think about the whole situation with the heat between the Imperials not knowing or not wanting the Rebel Alliance to help Bakura, and how they try to still kind of stage and create some kind of problems with them? So Teresa, if you want to go with that.
Well, first of all, it makes sense. These
Mhm.
people, these rebels, come and say, yeah, they're dead. And I could see them being, sure, Jan.
Sure, Jan. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very convenient. I want to see some proof.
Yeah.
Yes. But the whole idea of how it's going to play out, it's perfect. There's always a vacuum left when a big empire falls. We saw that when the Soviet Empire fell back in the 90s. So when a vacuum is created, in rushes all the different interests. And I thought it was very believable that there would be a true competition, if you will, for the hearts and minds of the Bakurans and which way they would go.
Right. And I think it was really well done because we needed to see that vacuum. We needed to see that scenario play out after the fall, because like I said in the beginning, that it was so fresh, everything happens and it's not even like the dust hasn't really settled yet. So every part of every Imperial parts of the galaxy probably didn't get word, right? And so we're seeing that. And we also see that as we go along in the timeline. And then once the word is given out, we do have that vacuum, like you said, where, leading officials, the next up to rule, I guess you can say, wants that position. And then we have that fighting going on within their own. And then that Dala, Natasi Dala, is the one that really shows that. And so does, what's her name? Iceheart, and Tim really likes Isani Iceheart or whatever her name is. But yeah, and so we see the scenarios play out and stuff. And so we're seeing the beginning of that. And I think this is a great setup for all that. So Stig, it looks like Stig's not there. So Revkev, go ahead, and then we'll go back to Stig.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Like you said, it's just kind of laying all this foundation that so many of the books in this timeline are going to be dealing with, kind of the remnant of the Empire. And what I liked about it was actually it the Nereus guy, when he was saying, I'm not gonna be the guy to take over.
Yeah.
Like I'm just not, I don't have that pull. I'm out here in this backward planet, way out in the Outer Rim. So I'm not gonna be that guy. But if I can get some points with whoever the next guy will be.
Mm-hmm.
So he's thinking about his long-term future plans with the Empire.
Yeah.
He's not going to be this great warlord that's going to take over. But hey, if I can capture this person, if I can do this, if I can get rid of this person, then it prepares me to get me out of here.
Yeah, and
I like that a lot.
Yeah. And that goes with them basically implanting those little parasites in Luke's food.
Yeah.
When Gariel goes to visit him, and he consumes it, and so does she, and that and getting kind of Luke out of the way in a sense.
Yeah, because he doesn't want the aliens to get him, because they know if they want him, then it's not for a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
So So it's just so like all moving all the little pawn pieces around the chessboard during it, I thought was
if
was
they can
interesting.
infect with Luke and he gets captured, then they can infect the Saruk, right?
Right, exactly.
And so, Tommy, what do you think about this whole setup with the Empire and and the power struggle that we start to see now?
It's what you would probably expect from everything that you knew about the Empire already. You already knew that they were a bit xenophobic, and they hated aliens. So when the Calamarians land down on the planet for shore leave, they don't know what to make them. They just see an alien race, and it's the same thing that they were taken aback the minute they seen Chewbacca, because they seen a Wookiee and it's like, oh no, he's not one of us. And that's really to be expected with everything that we know about them already. So I think that actually played out really well. Now, as far as you were talking about, like him infecting Luke, it just shows that he was not only just Imperial through and through, but he was quite devious in his own way.
Right.
He was not unintelligent. He was just very evil. That's all.
Right. He had enough of that. I guess you can say that genius.
Yeah, and most of the evil people do. They got just enough of it to make them dangerous.
Right. Exactly. So I don't know. Okay, those who read Thrawn Trilogy, was force healing, like, when was force healing introduced? I don't remember which book.
I seem to recall that Luke used a healing trance on himself, I think, in the Thrawn Trilogy, but for certain it was in the Hand of Thrawn duology. That's where
it's before that.
Yeah.
It's in Star Wars Episode 4. Because Kenobi kind of heals Luke when he's knocked out from the Sand People. Puts his hand on his forearm.
Is that official, or is that just one of the things that we nitpick online about? Because I've never.
I think it might have been in the novelization, though.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but it's kind of what he does. He puts.
I'm going to quote you on that. Okay, just
okay.
And say it's all Steve's fault.
Stig said, and I'm gonna put that on Twitter. So.
No. Do it in a sermon.
Oh, okay, I'll quote you this Sunday. Yeah. There you go.
Just start talking about.
Yeah,
just start talking about Stig from Norway randomly.
That's it, exactly.
All through the year.
If there was ever a center point to all the conspiracies that started, it involves Stig.
There you go.
Yes, okay. The New Hope is where it was first appeared. Okay.
There you go.
Well, there you go.
So now you can officially put it in your sermon there. And it's
I was right again.
In the morning.
I was right again. Imagine that.
Yeah, it's right there in the Book of Psalms, number 53.
The Psalm of C. Kenobi.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I'm not going to speak blasphemously of the holy book, so never mind. Okay, I'll leave Bible. Yeah.
You're like, she's like taking things.
That's as far as I go. That's as far as I go, and that was my fault.
It's my book of plot holy.
Oh.
My plot holy book.
There you go, Stig's plot holy. Because you're always pointing out on Twitter to those people that are like, says it's so good, there's nothing wrong with this, lore, and you're like, well, what about this? What about that?
What?
Yeah, and well, I shouldn't do it, but I do it anyway. I kind of finish it up with dumbass.
Tom Arnold is calling you that. That was quite a moment.
Oh yeah,
today.
Tom Arnold.
Oh, I seen that. Tom
Arnold. I pissed him off yesterday.
No way.
Oh yeah, and he replied and called me a dumbass.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yep, I seen that. All right. So let's see here. Who did I leave off with? I forgot now.
I think.
All right, Tom.
The villain, his plan with the bugs.
Yeah.
Right. It would have worked. It would have spread from Luke. So his plan was pretty damn solid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was disgusted by it. It was so gross.
Oh, and the cure was oxygen and stuff. But the thing is,
what about the plan bugged you?
Well, the way that they all like coughed up the thing, and it was gross.
So it kind of creeped you out.
No, you felt they were egging them on.
And Tommy, feel free to join in and share your opinion when we're doing it, even if I don't come on your team.
Well, I don't want to get too deep into this because apparently it stings Miss Martin Muses just a little bit. So
yeah, she can't stomach it.
Oh, okay, keep going, gentlemen. Just keep it going.
Burp.
Sorry, Miss Martin. It just keeps bubbling back up to the surface.
No. Yeah, it's quite a mouthful, really. It's almost too much for the reader to swallow.
Yeah, if you got a problem, just spit it out.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you should give it a hurl, Teresa.
Well, I was feeling like I wanted to reading this part. Yeah.
Yeah, with okay, so we'll go into that. But Tommy, so
It was a puke Skywalker. I know it's a running gag. Sorry.
All right, Tom.
Compose yourself.
And compose.
Well, let's move on now. I forgot exactly what we were on the last topic, other than getting into the mouthful of eggs and stuff. So, and them egging it on. All right, so let's move on here. So we have the Governor Nuris unrestrained bid for control and power that opens Guriel's eyes to the true nature of the Imperial dominance there.
You know what?
You're saying
he really hatched up a good plan.
I'm gonna mute you. Trying to get back in control with this panel. I had all these Star Wars.
You know the ironic thing, though, he used the Force to force it up.
I know that was.
We'll get into that here pretty soon. Let's just let's get it out of our system.
Yeah,
literally.
Let's do what Luke did. Yeah.
So, Tommy, I'll start with you, then I'll go to Teresa, since and just kind of change the order up a little bit. So, with the Force healing and how Luke realized that he had that sensation inside him, and he was trying to talk and he was coughing, and the description about how Guriel was given how they will hatch, they have certain amount of hours to breathe in oxygen to get it out. And if they don't, that those worms or those parasites will eat towards the heart after they hatch. And how Luke sensed it and used the Force to heal or to lure them out of his body. So, Tommy, what do you think about that? The whole pesticide situation?
I thought it was interesting. And once again, it played up to his strengths and weaknesses. He had this ability to find it, but he just didn't even realize it at first. And if somebody was a well-trained Jedi master, you would think that they would be able to detect that in themselves right away, that it wouldn't have taken so long. Once again, it's showing Luke is still on that journey to become a true master Jedi. Yeah. He still isn't there yet. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was a different type of plot than what you would normally see, because you would think, oh, well, I'm going to wait till they have him in hand, or maybe there'll be a bomb or something like that. To actually have something that would actually infest the ship of the aliens, I thought was actually pretty slick. It was different.
Yeah, and it wasn't the normal nano type virus either that we see a lot in the lore.
I mean, quite honestly, if it was up to us, we would have just sent guinea pigs undercover with nanotechnology, and we would have just assimilated the whole ship of aliens. So
make them look like the mouse droids, right? Excuse me. Soul Assassin says OG needs the madness button. Yes. And then Zagara, thank you for coming in. So Teresa, we already know how you felt about that whole situation, but when it came to Luke Force I wouldn't say necessarily force healing himself, because I think he used the force to kind of like mind trick them.
Yeah.
Because, so what do you think about that whole situation? Because we got to see Luke figure something out and use the force for it.
Well, for sure. And just like what Tommy was saying, it shows that in many ways he's stumbling around in the dark, but he's also matured to a point where he can focus and trust his instincts and figure out a way to make it work. I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah. All right. So Rev, what do you think about that discovery of Luke's?
Yeah, I thought that, again, it was interesting. It was something different. It was a neat plan. It was interesting with the whole bug thing. When I was reading it, I thought he was going to make them eat themselves, like make them eat each other. So that's where I thought it was going to go, and I wasn't expecting it to go where it did. And it was just like, so.
Yeah, I know he made them because he's like, he sensed them eat, survive, or whatever, how he said in there. And then he made them he gave them the sense of blood and where to go look for it, where to find that blood, that meat to look for. I thought that was very interesting. I'm like, wow, so yeah. So, and Stig, so what do you think about that whole new discovery of Luke and using and mind controlling those parasites?
It's I thought it was similar to the way where Force users have controlled or calmed animals in the EU.
Yeah.
By probing their instincts in a way.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So it definitely wasn't Force heal.
Yeah. No, it wasn't.
He just I don't know. He basically made the bugs move. That's what he did.
Yeah. And he did a mind trick on him in a sense, because he made them imagine source of food elsewhere.
Yeah, and doesn't in the Old Republic they use similar tricks to control flying animals and stuff like that. But Bane uses a different technique, though. He just force dominates them. But it's more like that. Just mind trick. The force power should be called pest control.
Hey, I'd love to have that on my house when summer comes around and those bugs pop up.
It's in Norway. It's actually worse in the fall because the insects head inside because it's cold outside.
Yeah.
Because they're dying, right? So they get inside.
Well, they do that even here in Florida.
Yeah.
When the temperature drops even just a little bit, you get some of those things come in, the palmetto bugs and those big, nasty looking American cockroaches that are out in the woods. Things like over 3 inches long.
Oh, I thought you were talking about hippies.
Oh, yeah, no, I spray for those. I spray for those.
Yeah, you don't want those hippies in the house. They make messes everywhere.
I bet you Tommy has that kind of force control with his guinea pig army.
Oh, yeah. They listen. Well, most of the time. Sometimes I get the, oh, God, what was the guy? The one that had his dog talking to him. I get that with the guinea pigs. I swear they're talking to me sometimes.
He thinks he's controlling the guinea pigs, but it is the other way around.
He thinks, huh? All right, so let's move on. So basically, Governor Neuros is, basically has unrestrained bid for the control and power over, and then it kind of opens up Guriel's eyes to the nature of the imperial dominance, right? And planet-wide uprising of disenfranchised Bakurans begins. So the Bakurans want to be liberated from the empire. They want to be their own place. And so they are seeing the rebel alliance, the ones that came and respond, a way to help them meet, have those ends meet and stuff. So we see that in there. So we see the push and pull. We see Leia and them wanting to help liberate them, but also have them be a part of the the new government that they're going to eventually establish, right? We also know that Luke is a commander. So that's one thing that I forgot to mention, is that in this novel, he got promoted with his own ship as commander. So that was interesting.
Well, he was a commander in Return of the Jedi too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they call him Commander Skywalker, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think since then, though, he dropped out, and then he was given back that title, which kind of surprised him. He's like, okay, he never really had command over a starship, right? It was only like the squadron. So that's a huge step for him, I guess you could say. And basically Leia, we see Leia that she gets arrested by Nuris for sedition, but Han rescues her from the prison as the joint Imperial rebel forces repulse the Siruk. Then at Nuros's command, the Imperial starship breaks the truce and begins attack the Alliance force. So we see again that push and pull, it going back and forth, and Leia trying to establish peace and the truce. So we have that, which goes well with the time frame they're in and the newly destroyed empire, basically, and stuff. So we do know that Luke does get captured by the Siruk, and they want him for the entictment and stuff like that. And so we see that, and then we talked about the him being infected. So do you guys want anything to add into the story, like what, now that we're wrapping down towards the end of the novel? Teresa, is there anything that stood out to you, like in the middle towards the end of the novel, that you want to bring up?
No, not really. Just it went to its logical conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And Dev died, so I know that made Stieg and all them happy. The people that didn't like it.
Yeah. Woo!
Yes, and of course you have the governor, what's his name, Nurikus or whatever his name is, going, I'm evil, and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
This is one of those novels I think I much more enjoy the setup than I did the ending of it. I really enjoyed seeing all the stuff, and I don't have anything against it. It's just like, okay, all right, let's keep going. Yeah.
It's like a nice little introduction of like the Imperial remnant and what's going on and what's happening right after Endor. And when it sets up, I think it sets up like the whole timeline in general, respectfully, and where Luke is at, because he's not overpowered like people seen him in Mandalorian. He's not that strong. Even when you see him in Thrawn Trilogy, he's not that strong. He has a hard time even defeating the Nogri on his first encounter. When we get like 20, like not even 20, we get like 10 years or so after that in the Thrawn duology, him and Mara still have a hard time defeating the droids.
Yep.
And so that right there, I mean, I understand that, they wanted to give Luke to the audience like that everybody loved in, like in the EU, but when the truth comes down to it, he wasn't that powerful during that time.
No.
And I will stand on that, I'll stand on that and keep saying that, it's, it was all about dangling the keys in front of people to get them excited and stuff. And I think that was just a terrible thing to do to the fans, because Luke is not going to be that character, and he's not that character in the new Wars and stuff. But here he is. But here he takes time. Here he's still discovering. Here he's still being led and guided by Obi-Wan. But we know there's only a certain amount of time that Obi-Wan can stay with him, because Force Ghosts can't stick around that long.
Nope.
And stuff. So, Tommy, so what do you think? Like, you have anything to add from the middle towards the end of the book that you've seen that was significant to you that you want to share?
Well, there was one thing. I mean, overall, I like the story, but there was a few things that they added in there that threw the throwbacks to the original movies. And one was the scene where at the segment where Han goes to rescue Leia, and it hits back to A New Hope, where she's like, "Did you not have a plan again?"
Yeah,
I like that little inclusion to a nod from A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
They did a few moments like that throughout the book, but I really enjoyed that one. because it was just kind of like a funny moment in the middle of something serious that's going on. And that kind of played into what Lucas originally put in the first film. So
yeah, exactly. And those nods, if they're done right, they have a lot of power behind them, right? They have a lot of like, oh yeah, kind of, and if they're done in few and far in between, there's a lot of depth behind them instead of just using them to, connect in a sense.
Well, they definitely did that in a lot of the movies that Disney had, especially Rogue One. When they just like threw in like that random scene with Ponda Baba and Dr. Everson.
Right.
It didn't need to be there. It just felt forced. It felt like garbage. So,
right.
And in this book, they had a colored woman be a rebel officer. She passed away though in the battle, but
Right.
Supposedly that wasn't a thing until Disney, right?
Right, exactly. And then we have Ironhead. Thank you for coming in. It's like a Navy squadron commander being given command of a carrier battle group, not a normal thing, and why Luke was leaning so heavily on his bridge crew.
Yes, good point, because Luke was asking for advice quite a bit and listening to experienced people.
Yeah, and
He
Yeah.
didn't just take command and just automatically knew everything.
Right. And that was very smart of him.
Yeah, that's actually good writing, character development.
Right. All right. So Rev, do you have anything that you want to add in, like from the middle towards the end of this book that maybe we didn't point out just yet, or something that was significant that?
Yeah, I think for me, just the as you started getting more towards the end, it felt a little bit there was now too many loose ends to close off. By the end of the book, you had too many little sub stories happening all at the same time. You had what is his name there, Nereus and Gariel tension. You had this uprising that was happening in Bakura. You had the space battle going on. You had Luke's fight going on in the ship. You had Han and Leia dealing with the stuff going on in their ship. It started feeling like, okay, there's too much happening. And then for me, it felt rushed at the end. Like the last chapter just felt like, boom, now here I got all these 5 things have just got to end right now. So that was probably the only thing, like, where Stig was saying, like the middle part with you was like, for me, it was the ending that was a little bit because of that. I enjoyed all the build up in the middle, but then I was like, oh, this almost felt like it needed a little bit more time to resolve itself.
It was also a bit, Han and Leia wanting to sacrifice themselves.
Yeah.
I thought that was, I wouldn't think they would sacrifice themselves for that.
Yeah.
But it was like,
they came over this far to sacrifice themselves for that.
Yeah, just we defeated the Empire. Let's sacrifice ourselves for Bakura, for something that might not even work. But and I thought the final space battle stuff was a bit hard to follow. A lot of the times I wasn't sure who was where. It could have been written more understandably, I guess.
Yeah, and that's where they could have used Wedge a little bit more in that.
Yeah, he was just on the comlink now and again.
Yeah,
he was like, I'm on the other side of the planet, coming right now.
Yeah,
and then he was introduced early in the book for a few chapters, and then he was just mentioned now and again. He was present, and I thought a little. It happened to Chewie a little bit too. He was there guarding the Falcon. He was there at the dinner, but he didn't really contribute much.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And then, so Stig, you kind of, you have anything else to add, or anything else to add to like the middle towards the end of the book that maybe stood out to you, other than what you said?
No, I thought Han, Luke, and Leia got to shine in this book. They developed, maybe Leia in particular with the Anakin stuff and how she was having issues with seeing cloaks everywhere, and I thought that was splendidly done, because it felt logical, you know.
Yeah.
But I thought the plot was pretty basic, though. The villain was smarter than most villains, really, because he had an excellent plan. He did.
Yeah.
And it was also good to see the other officer actually defect.
Yeah.
Because Imperials did that. I mean, Crix Medine did that. He was a defector.
Yeah.
Right.
So it ties into, not all Imperials are evil.
Right. Right.
You know?
Sometimes it takes a scenario to really make them think, oh shit, so what am I doing? You know, and that's a significant turn point for them. And I really like those. I really like those significant turn points. And
he had gotten blamed for something his superior officer had ordered as well in the past.
Yeah.
So, it goes to show that it's not always easy being in an army, right?
Right. Yeah. And so Ironhead says, an enactment. Wow, that was dark by Star Wars standards. Have you read New Jedi Order?
Yeah, that's darker.
That's darker. So I would suggest reading New Jedi Order here. And then we have, and enactment is more Warhammer 4K like. And let's see here. Welcome back, Orange Hat Review. And maybe that is why it's difficult for me to remember too much going on. It seemed like Tyers, Kathy Tyers probably wasn't a really good writer when it comes to like space battle kind of situations. Probably that's why she kind of like skipped over them and kind of it felt rushed. That's my impression with that. Not everybody can. Karen Travis, on the other hand, she's really great. And Michael Stackpole, there you go. And authors are gonna have their strengths and their weaknesses, and sometimes you can tell that by how they kind of skip over some scenes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, Bob Salvatore, who wrote Vector Prime and Attack of the Clones, he's written all those Dritz books, fantasy books with a dark elf. He is absolutely known for doing tremendously well action scenes.
Yeah,
and you see that in Vector Prime too. He's superb at stuff like that. But
Vector Prime. Oh my god, it's a must read.
He's not that good with plotting though, because all these books are basically character driven, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But writers play on their strengths. I think he certainly did.
Yeah,
and Kathy Tyers' strength seems to be, in my opinion, character development.
Oh, yeah. So Ironhead, I haven't read this book in years, but looking back on it with the knowledge of history I've learned since then, the chaos and dangling thread stakes makes me as realistic now, or it probably means it. So like I said, there's a point that I did not touch upon when it comes to Luke. And I think it was Thanos, but he got called into the office to go talk with Thanos, I think. And he got to take R2, which they had to put a restraining bolt on him and put him on a repulsor disc to kind of carry him along because Luke wanted him there with him. And he wanted Luke to demonstrate his lightsaber. Remember? And then he called in two of his stormtroopers in to, intimidate Luke to make him draw his saber. But even before then, when they brought in Luke, they're like, oh, Luke Skywalker, we know that name because there's a significant reward out for you. And then after he had that little defense little parry with the stormtroopers, and Luke's like, I could have killed your stormtroopers. And he's like, and then he goes and alludes and thinks to himself, if I turned him in, I can get the reward money and be rich kind of deal. And so this goes into the thing of like people saying, well, Luke wasn't known that well during that time.
I mean,
even though there was
he would be known.
Right.
I mean, the Rebel Alliance used him as a poster boy. He was the big hero. He destroyed the Death Star. It was a big win.
Yeah. Oh god.
Lady Tyriel comes in, taking them on Stig.
It's
It's
not my fault that the villain put all his eggs in one basket.
In one mouth or a couple mouths.
Well, even if you didn't read any of the extra material, just look at the end of A New Hope. they had all the entire army or of rebels in this big ceremony. So if you were part of any of that, you knew exactly who the whole lot of them were.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and,
Oh, yeah.
it's clear in the OT that the Empire are actively looking for Skywalker, and I mean,
Plus the opening crawl of Empire Strikes Back, right? Like, obsessed with pursuing and finding young Skywalker. Like,
yeah,
that's
I mean,
what it's all about.
if you have the finances, of course you're gonna pay people for information or for his capture. You know,
and all the bounty hunters too.
Yeah, you know, you just send out some messages and tell people if they can find the time, if they see Luke Skywalker, tell us where he is. Don't offer any rewards or anything. You know?
Yeah. So I thought that was very interesting. And then even with him wanting to see a lightsaber, because he's like, it's been a while since we've seen any Jedi, you know, and I'm very curious about your lightsaber. I want to see it in action, kind of deal. So I thought that was a nice little touch, just a nice little detailed touch, because we know that, you know, the Empire basically purged the Jedi, right? And that I think he was young during the time when the Clone Wars. I'm not too for sure, but he knew of the Jedi, which goes back now that people say Jedi are myth in the new lore, right? But then he's like, I know of the Jedi and I want to see your saber.
Yeah, it's so weird because you see in, you know, Rebels and all that, Ahsoka and Kanan and all of those are fighting with the Mandalorians with lightsabers. So how can even the Mandalorians claim that they were legends? I mean, in the Mandalorian, they say that, yeah, the Jedi were ancient sorcerers that fought with the Mandalorians. I'm like, no, it was just a few years ago. And Bo-Katan was there too.
Right. She literally, you know, fought,
Yeah.
you know, during that time and seen. Didn't Bo-Katan meet Obi-Wan at one point? Or because she's about the same age as her sister. She had to known or seen him.
She saw Obi-Wan, and apparently she is the same age as Obi-Wan, according to Filoni. Which means she's close to 70 in the Mandalorian. She does not look 70.
She has some excellent face cream.
Yeah, it's in the mask. Which is never take your helmet off; it'll make you look young. Look at what happened to Boba. Look at what happened to Boba Fett without the helmet.
Yeah.
Oh, Soul Assassin! I'll turn in Skywalker for a Klondike bar. What would you do for a Klondike bar?
Nice.
Oh, there goes another quad. All right, so you know we're wrapping up on towards the ending now. We know that, you know, basically Luke got the pesticides out. You know, basically everything didn't turn out.
It wasn't genocide. It was pesticide.
There we go. And we know that Epi Epi, because I remember her name because of EpiPen, but Epi, you know, she was like her son, it was her son that died in what they called their own purge. And it was like a few, you know, whatever. And so she lost her son, and he is very strong in the Force as well. And Luke kind of reminded her of him and stuff. And he again showed her how to do a Force trance to help herself heal. And so she was basically a rebel during her time, right? And so she was a very interesting character. And that's one person that I almost forgot about is little Epi. And how she's like, we need Bakura to rise. We need to liberate ourselves from the Empire. And she goes onto the ship towards the end, and she's like, I'm here to help, basically. I'm here to save the day, kind of, you know, this old lady. And so, Teresa, what'd you think about Epi, you know, like her whole character and her leading up to making whatever stand that she was supposed to have made towards the end? Because it was like, I'm here to help stand for my planet, but then it kind of faded with her.
Come on, Teresa, answer all those 5 questions.
Oh, yeah. Right now.
Well, I won't lie to you. She's so memorable, I've completely forgotten about her. I recall she was kind of around. Sure.
She was the one that didn't have that much character development very well. You know, that she could have been used to the advantage of the story.
Yeah, I feel like Yoda's line, I am wondering, why are you here?
I'm clipping that.
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna clip that. That's cute. I like that. Yeah. So for you, she was like, she was there, but then, you know, just to kind of show Luke that he can train in a sense, but that was it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Stig, what'd you think about little Epi?
She was okay. I like that she contributed, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
She didn't have enough screen time.
No, she didn't. She was kind of like Wedge and Chewie, and kind of the droids. The droids had their moment, but they translating Siruk, but that was it. So there you go. Yeah. All right. So Rev Kev, since this book is new to you, what did you think about Miss Epi?
Again, there was kind of like a background character who had like an interesting story, but it was just a lot of stuff done off camera, right? So she kind of basically started this whole rebellion thing, uprising, you know, and you get little glimpses of, oh, I just did this and I did this and I did this. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay. And then
it was a bit quick, maybe.
Yeah.
The uprising was really fast.
Yeah.
I think, you know, instead of having those slow moments of repeat of the Siruk and Dev's story, that like every time we went back to them, it's like, oh, let's make him happy again. You know, we must, you know, blah, 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 hypnotize you, whatever they did to him. They could have delved more into her stories because it was intriguing because she was a rebel during the time when they were trying to liberate themselves in the beginning, right?
Right.
And
Would you say the book needed an epilogue?
Yes. And yeah.
Well, and they gave her a bug too. Like that's what made her sick. And you know, and so there was like a lot of cool stuff about the character, but it was just kind of an important part of the plot, but it was just something that just seemed to most of it happened off screen.
Yeah. And Lady Toriel has a point here. Luke didn't like having to be over people. He was always hands-on, not sitting back to send others. Yeah, and that's what we've seen in the beginning of this book too. It's like he needed to go help. He needed to go do this. So when he got command of the ship, he's like, "What? Really?" You know. But at least he was smart enough and not turned into a Gary Stu where he just took control and knew what he was doing. He asked for help. You know. So there you go. All right. So Tommy, so what do you think about Epi in general?
No, she was an important character. Like her character herself, like Rev said, it was a bit of a background character, but she was very important to the plot in more ways than one. Not only was it important for Luke to establish that he meant well as a Jedi and that not all Jedi are evil, but she was also an important character to show the evil of the Empire and what lengths that they would go to also open Gariel's eyes, who was blinded by that point with the Imperial propaganda.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
I mean, even like a smaller character like that can have a huge impact on the story moving forward, and especially the way it all ends, because it almost centers around her near the end of the book.
Right. And we never got really anything after that. So that was kind of sad too. You know, she was like an intriguing character in a sense, like because we had a little bit of history about her, which led us to history about Bakura, right? And so we're going to move on from that.
A little side note, isn't that a good message? That helping someone seemingly at random can have good ripple effects down the line that you don't know about.
Right.
Yay.
Which is in the Lord of the Rings too, when Bilbo doesn't kill Gollum in The Hobbit, and then it becomes very important later on.
Right. Exactly. And so that's a good point. But then there's also that point too of like your decisions that you do in the past will affect the future. And so on top of that, we're going to continue to review the Shadows of Our Fathers, which is Luke's Jabim story arc, which is goes back to Anakin Skywalker's Battle of Jabim arc. So that's tomorrow morning for Coffee Chat. So that was a nice little segue for that. So it's still on tomorrow morning. But so what we see here is that, after the Battle of Endor, we get the Rebel Alliance immediately becomes the Alliance of Free Planets. And then by the time we get into the Thrawn Trilogy, it turns into the New Republic. So there's a little history there. So I thought that was interesting. So now we're at the conclusion of this. So Teresa, if you do ratings or whatever, what do you give this book?
I would give this book a 7.
Okay.
I can't give it much higher because I don't love it. Mm-hmm. Maybe a 7.5.
Yeah.
But I can't really find fault with it either.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. Yeah, it is what it is. It's a nice little continuation. But understand, when I read this book, my order had been the release order of these EUs. So I already had what I had felt was the sequel to the Return of the Jedi, which was the Thrawn Trilogy. Mm-hmm. So going back and reading this, I'm like, well, okay, that's nice that happened, but that was yesterday's news. Yeah. Yeah. So it's hard to put a number on it because I need to be fair to the writer and to what she was commissioned to do and the way that she characterized the characters. I didn't feel like any of them were out of their element. I didn't feel like they were out of character. I didn't feel like they were being irrational. I really didn't even have any WTF moments. And there were some really nice little scenes in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
exactly.
There we go.
All right. So I'm going to go and switch directions here. So Tommy, for you, if you give a rating system or whatever, share your opinion about this novel as a whole.
Are we saying like 1 to 10 or?
You can say good, bad, recommend, or you can go 1 to 10, whatever you.
Well, I would definitely recommend it. It's a very important setup to what happens, especially right after the Return of the Jedi. So you want to kind of get into Luke's progression, as it were, and all the consequences from the original 3 movies. If I was going to rate it on a scale 1 to 10, there were some things that I could have did without in this book. Even though it was good, it was not a bad book. It was a very good book, but there was a few things I could have did without. So in 1 to 10, I would give it maybe an 8.
Okay, fair enough. Good. And Rev Kev, since this is your first read, I'm very interested to hear what you have, how you would rate it, or.
Yeah, well, I liked it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I liked about it, it was easy to read. There were some parts it was a little hard to track, especially in the space combat stuff and being a little rushed at the end. But I like the new characters that were introduced. And like Stig said earlier, the Empire characters were probably some of the most interesting of the new characters introduced. I like them a lot. The alien race there, the Shiruk, they were very interesting. And actually, even though you knew it wasn't going to be this major threat because there's all these books that come out after, and Luke and Leia and Han are fine, it still actually had a lot of tension in it, which I thought was good. My probably only criticism of it is I actually felt a lot of the dialogue between Han and Leia actually felt more episode 4. It felt like their relationship was stuck in episode 4.
Okay.
Whereas didn't they kind of move beyond that by Return of the Jedi? It just felt
they were kind of hinted like to help him clean up down on Endor because they were down on planet.
Yeah.
And then the little love scene that was on the Falcon for them too, that Chewie did.
Yeah. So that was my only my one little nitpick about it was it just kind of felt Han and Leia didn't progress as much as like Luke did.
Yes. And thank you, Bone, for $2 super chat. Let's go, Brandon.
No.
He just comes straight in with that. And then Ironhead, I read this not long ago after seeing Return of the Jedi's re-releases in the theaters in the mid-90s, a few years before I read Thrawn. I think it worked better for me because of that. And that's the thing. I didn't, for me, I read that first. And I had no problem with that. I think that sometimes reading the Thrawn Trilogy can maybe put you off for Truce of Bakura because of there's a 3-part book series, basically a trilogy, and it's all well. I'm not saying Tyers wasn't planned out either, but because it was well written, and that's what opened up the EU, for everybody as canon. That there's those expectations,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then so Stieg, so your rating? Give your summary.
Well,
Kitty.
Rev Kev is right about the Han and Leia stuff. It seemed like it regressed a bit, their relationship. Yeah, zoom in on him. That is the man. He's there.
Well, there's a cat back there. Look at that.
Yeah.
Boss of the house.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
he's cute.
like Tommy said, and Rev Kev, that the Imperials were probably the most interesting ones, but they also kind of overshadowed the main threat, was Siruk, about halfway through the book, because about halfway through the book, the Siruk kind of stopped being a threat in a way.
Oh, interesting.
They were basically just messing with Dev.
Yeah.
Right, and they wanted Luke, but it didn't look like they had any solid plan. It was just, we need more, droid ships.
Yeah.
And so the main threat became the Imperial halfway through the book, which a little bit of a mess, I thought, but I'm landing on a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
Because, like I said, the middle part, I didn't like the middle part. I liked the beginning and the end, but it still felt like Star Wars.
Yeah.
The book, absolutely, Han, Luke, and Leia were done right, flawlessly. But you have Wedge and Chewie that got kind of sidelined for no good reason, really. I mean, they could have used Wedge for all kinds of stuff in this one. So 6 out of 5. I wouldn't say it's required reading, but it's recommended reading.
So Steve, would you call this one the Phantom Saruk? Yeah.
Phantom Saruk, absolutely.
Well, you know what? Here's just another funny observation. If you think about it, there's this alien race that they don't really know nothing about. So it kind of ties into what George wound up doing with episode 1. They didn't know who the threat were, and they showed up with droid armies the same way the Saruk did.
Yeah. And the Trade Federation got kind of, well, they weren't that competent, were they? And I didn't think the Saruk were either. So, 6 out of 10, a little bit above average. I don't consider a 5 a bad score, though, because that's mediocre, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's
right down the middle. It's okay, So 6.
Okay.
Which is the correct score for this book.
Okay. All right. For me, I give it an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed that. This is basically my first EU book I decided to delve into. And so I really like the story. Yeah, there's some things that, were kind of repetitive. I agree. I love how they got into how threatening Force lightning can be and how much it had, impacted Luke and his health and how he still struggles and stuff. So they kept to that continuity of Luke's character arc as well as Han and Leia's. And I think that there are some characters that they could have brought out a little bit more, like Epi. And I like how there's continuity, that the continuity still was intact and the use of characters later on, like Gariel in the lore. And
you know what? Early on, a lot of the Star Wars writers with their first book tended to leave little threads hanging,
right,
just in case they got to write more, right? And I think maybe Epi might be one of those. And what's his name? Thanos?
Yeah.
And maybe Garrel as well. But Kathy Tyers didn't write another book for quite a while, didn't she?
She's in the New Jedi Order. I think she does Dark Forces or Dark not Dark
which
Forces,
is
Dark
10 years later almost.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it's a lot of
You
see that in the early Bantam
or
books.
is it Thanes?
Thanos.
Is it Thanos?
Yeah, I called it Thanos because it's Thanos. I keep on going back to Thanos, but it's Thanos. It's Thanas. So it's Thanos. Yeah. So, like I said, this really struck out to me like a good continuity right after Return of the Jedi. And the state that the Empire and the Rebel Alliance is in, after, because like I said, like the smoke or the dust hasn't fully settled from the defeat of Palpatine, and that shows. And so I think that's a nice little nod to what can happen right after a battle is won. There's still a lot of mop up and cleaning to do, and this is the beginning of the mop up and cleanup, right? And we see it in the X-Wing series, we see it all the way into the Thrawn Trilogy, all the way down into like even the Corellian Trilogy. There's still these little remnants of the Empire that people want, some of the heads want to still have control somehow, some way, shape, or form. And so this was a great introduction to that.
Robotic Pope in the chat says maybe the abridged audiobook might not be a bad thing in this case.
Yeah, it is. I was going to get to that as well. I read the book and I've also listened to the abridged, and so some of the long drawn out middle parts that Stig brought up of like going back and forth, is not in that. So it went straight to the point where they needed to be at. Although the hangar where they stage a so-called attack to kind of make that the Calamarians went down to stations or their hangar base 12 and stuff like that. And that little conflict there is not in that. So but that's one of the things I wish that they would have kept in there, because it shows how much like the Empire still doesn't want the Rebel Alliance to be in control. So that's one little element that's missing. So so you guys, we need to decide what books to have them vote on Twitter. So let's do that before we close out. Do you guys have any ideas what we should cover next?
Well, there's 4 guests, so you could recommend one each.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Teresa, you go.
Oh, well, why not throw out one of the ones that we've been trying to do that's been on some of the polls is Tatooine Ghost, if I'm correct?
Okay, Tatooine Ghost. And I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Shit, that was the one I was going for.
Oh, no. Great minds think alike.
All right, I'll go around the other way, Stig, so you can think. So, Tommy, so do you have any books that you would want to see voted on for review, the next review?
I really can't say offhand.
Okay.
The amount of books that I brought back are pretty limited, and I'm pretty sure that you've had discussions about most of the ones that I do have. So
okay, all right. So I'll if you could think of something before we close out here, just let us know or let me know. Rev, so what do you think?
Well, seeing as I've only read 14 out of the 149 books that I now own, I'm pretty open.
Yeah, you have one particular that you're like, let's.
But I've been meaning to start the new Jedi Order, so I've never read Vector Prime.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably one of the ones I would recommend. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't mind the first books of a series because that's a start off, and then maybe it'll take people to want to explore the rest of the series. We did that with X-Wing last review. We did that with Squadron, and so Vector. All right, Stig.
Well, Yoda Dark Rendezvous. Standalone book that I recently read, and it was surprisingly good. It was awesome, and it's got Ventress in it and Dooku.
Yeah.
Ventress is a beast in this book.
Yeah. Nice.
And it explores the Yoda Dooku relationship, and it has some cool characters in it too.
Mm-hmm.
Some Padawans.
Yeah, I'm thinking the last one that I read that I remember being pretty good was The Approaching Storm.
Ah, yeah. We can even do that. It can also be a book you haven't read yet, because I like to do this between like 6 to 8 weeks from the last one. So it gives people who follow and haven't read a chance to pick up the book and read it. And a lot of times I'll recommend Audible, especially if you're busy. Sometimes those Audibles leave out nuances that really that ties the story together and the plot together more so. So it could be something you read. It could be something you haven't read.
And Approaching Storm is referenced a couple of times in episode 2 because it's a prequel to episode 2. It was released right before, so the viewers, if they wanted to, could read the book and then they'd know what's been going on right before the movie.
Yeah.
And it also introduced Luminara and Barriss.
Mm-hmm. So we have one from the New Republic, we have one from the New Jedi Order, we have one from the prequel trilogy era. So, and we don't have to necessarily we can always do a book within the same era. We can even skip ahead and do like one example. The Millennium Falcon book is a fun read if you like the Millennium Falcon, and that's in the Legacy of the Force era. So, so if you have any ideas before we close out, if not, then I will add mine in there or whatever, but that's okay if you can't think of anything either. So no pressure. No pressure whatsoever. So yeah. All right. So I'll get the poll set up on Twitter here shortly. So people in the chat can vote on that. I know that someone was saying about Kenobi. I think we do Kenobi already, Steve?
Yeah, we did it before we had the poll stuff.
Yeah.
We did Kenobi and we've done the Thrawn Trilogy.
Yep. Thrawn Trilogy.
Darth Bane.
Bane. Yeah.
Jedi Academy.
Yeah, Shadow Hunter.
Did you do Darth Revan?
No.
Not yet. Do you want to throw that in there?
Yeah, sure.
Wait, I thought we did.
No, we haven't done Revan. Maybe the other group did it, but well, you can only fit 4 titles on the poll, though.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, and I like to keep it kind of the no soul assassin, no.
No.
Oh, for crying out loud.
I would do a book burning maybe with that. Oh, that's funny. But yeah. All right. So everybody, I'll have the poll up here pretty soon. Tatooine Ghost, which has been on the poll so many damn times. I'm surprised it hasn't been voted on yet. Vector Prime to start off the New Jedi Order doesn't mean we're going to follow the order, the series. It just means it's going to get your feet wet with it. Dark Rendezvous, and then Darth Revan. So we have Old Republic, New Republic, New Jedi Order, and prequel trilogy era. So we have represented one from each of those, which gives a variety. It's going to probably be hard for people to decide. So let's go ahead and start closing things out. Miss Martin Muse is the winner of the copy of the painting. She's getting almost a poster size of Mistress of Rattatak that you should be receiving here soon. So where can we find you, and what do you have on your schedule for this coming week?
Well, you can find me on Miss Martin Muses, where I talk about what makes me laugh, makes me cry, makes me happy, makes me sad, or just really ticks me off. Coming up, I will be on my channel, the Lord of the Rings book discussion. We are beginning the Two Towers. You can also find me on Nina Infinity on Sunday night. We are going to be discussing the Netflix series Midnight Mass, and Terror Tuesdays, where we discuss horror flicks. The theme will be doll movies, so watch out. Chucky's coming.
Awesome. That kind of sounds creepy right there. Watch out.
About Chucky, though, the first episode of the Chucky TV show has aired today.
Oh.
Yeah, they're doing a show.
Okay. All right. And so, Stieg, where can we find you at? What do you have going on with your schedule?
Right here tomorrow. In 12 and a half hours.
Right. Yeah.
Coffee chat. Other than that, I will be on Mara's channel, Jade Shadow, on Friday, where we will be doing, she and I will be doing our top 10 horror movies. It's not going to be our, the best ones, but our top 10 favorites for whatever reason.
Whatever reason.
Yeah. Why it's our favorites and stuff. So, it's Halloween period. So that's it, I think. No, Lord of the Rings thing with Teresa. Book talk again. And I think that's it. I don't know.
I don't know. You're like, I'm just going to be where I need to be when I need to be there, right?
Yeah, people ask, like, okay.
Yeah. All right, Rev Kev, tell us what you have going on within the coming week.
Yeah, so over on my channel, it's fine for Rev Kev. I started doing a new thing that became really, really popular on my channel. My 20-year-old son has been taking me through his favorite hip hop albums.
Okay.
So we're just going to keep running with that for a little bit. So we're just going to finishing up the editing. My son is taking me through the Kanye West collection. So we're starting with Kanye's very first album, The College Dropout. And we're having fun with that because, I'm a pastor. So it's not normally the genre of music I listen to. So we're having a good time doing that. And so that's one of the big things we're doing.
When do you get to the gangster rap?
Exactly. Well, we'll see how it goes. It'll come up.
You know what? I know what Kev drinks for breakfast.
What's that?
Pasteurized milk.
Dun, dun. Exactly. Considering my favorite Kanye song is Gold Digger, so I don't know. I just got so just have to drop that one. So we're doing that. The first episode of that will be dropping in the next day. We were hoping to have it done yesterday, but the editing's taking a little bit longer. And apart from that, I'm doing Star Wars stuff on my channel and been debating whether or not I'm going to talk about this whole Superman thing because I'm a diehard Superman fan, but collecting Superman comics since 1986. Ooh. So, do I want to open that can of worms? We'll see.
Well, definitely people go subscribe and find out if he opens those can of worms. All right. So, and we have, thank you, Tommy, for coming in last minute. I
appreciate it. I appreciate it greatly. I've been hoping that one of these times I'd be able to get on here and talk some of these EU novels with you. It's an absolute pleasure to finally be able to get up here and do it. Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys can find me a little bit of everywhere and sometimes a little bit of nowhere. If you look under your furniture, if you don't find me, you'll probably find a member of the Guinea Pig Collective nibbling off the wires to one of your household items. But you can always find me Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, where we do Going Old School retro discussions, where we get a panel of people together and talk about those things that we love from years past. Of course, I do videos on old toys, retro toys being right, and old movies too. Remember, never let anybody tell you what you can and can't say, what you should or should not watch, because your silence gives consent. Thank you so much.
And that is some strong bunch of words right there. Don't ever be silent. Don't ever let anybody intimidate you either to be silent, right? All right. And again, Absolutely. This is OG Star Wars, and I am so glad that you guys all tuned in for a literature review and laughed and had fun with us geeking out on this novel here and Star Wars in general. This is what my channel is about. I sometimes do compare and contrast between the new and old lore, and I think it's to get people to think about things and think about where the heart of Star Wars is really at. And, and sharing the lore. And now I'm starting to do little history shorts or lore shorts with quick little bites of Star Wars lore. And one of my very successful ones is about the hyperdrive lore. So go ahead and check that out. So the next coming little lore bite is going to be out about the galaxy sectors, like the main sectors of the galaxy. So stay tuned for that as well. And you can find me tomorrow morning here for Coffee Chat, where we come in and discuss the comics. Like I said before, if you follow me, you would know I wasn't a big into comics growing up. So now I'm being introduced to them now, and I'm having a blast. And Stig is, watching it all go down and co-piloting with me on that. So come back here tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, for some more Star Wars fun. And thank you guys again for coming in. You guys are magnificent. You guys are amazing. I enjoy your support with you guys in the chat here on the panel. You guys, just keep this going. This channel is here because of you. So thank you for tuning in, and you guys have a great day.